I've got a great story. It's a story that my dad used to tell, and as much as I would love to have him come down and tell it, I can't. He passed away a couple of months ago. He was a really good storyteller, and I imagine that he would have imbued this with a lot more humor than maybe I can do, but I'm going to try my best. My dad grew up in Kirkland Lake, Ontario, Canada. They were an average family. My grandfather was a salesman. My grandmother was a stay-at-home mom. There was a handful of kids. They had lived in this one small house for a really long time. And as my grandfather became more successful and did better at work, it was time to move. So they bought a new house on Comfort Street. Growing up, we always heard about the house on Comfort Street. So I guess what ended up happening was the day that they showed up to move in, there was a dog there. Nobody knew whose dog it was. Turns out the dog came with the house. The former owners had left it there. It wasn't the most friendly dog. I do believe that it tried to attack my grandfather when he opened the front gate to the yard to walk on in. And my grandfather, being a man of that era, wasn't putting up with any crap. And needless to say, the dog never really bothered him again. Nobody knew what the dog's name was, so they decided to name it Pokey. There's a black lab, I believe, kind of crazy. And as most black labs do, it liked to eat things. So to eat parts of the house and erect a Christmas tree and stuff like that. But this story is even more crazy. I guess one of Pokey's issues would be that when they let him out at night, he didn't always come home, which is fine. I mean, it doesn't matter during the time of the year when it's warm, spring, summer, fall. It's no big deal. And he would eventually return home, show up, whatever, be at the door, and they'd let him in the next morning. Well, it just so turns out that Pokey disappeared one night in the winter. And anybody who's been up in northern Canada that has experienced a winter up here, especially back in like the 50s and 60s, knows that it can get pretty cold. So they opened the door, yelled for the dog. The dog did not come back. They waited a while, tried again. Dog still didn't come back. So they figured, you know what? Maybe we lucked out, and it ran away. Locked the door, went to bed. It was late. Next morning they wake up, go out the back door, and sure enough, there's the dog lying on the front step, frozen solid, like it came right out of a freezer. They had to peel it off the cement. They figured that the dog was dead. But as my grandfather was carrying it to who knows where, he noticed that the dog's eye moved. So, thought, okay, well, we'll bring it inside and thaw it out. Brought it into the house, set it down by the fire, and left it there. Well, turns out the dog thawed out, was perfectly fine, and went on to live for another 5 years.